Good evening.
Good evening. You are live here courtside with Lawman.
And Carmen B.
We are here to talk about issues of criminal justice that affect the public.
And we are an informational channel. So anything that we talk about, we are not creating an attorney-client relationship with myself or Carmen B.
But please feel free to call in to put your questions in the chat.
Yes.
You can call in at 916-443-5288. You can message us in the chat. We can see and respond to any questions that you have.
Yes. Now, let's see. Big week, right? I believe.
Yes.
Didn't we have some verdicts, I guess, from last week that we got to talk about somewhat from Aubrey? Did we talk about the verdicts? Okay. Let's see. What else is in the news then?
Well, in my home state, there was a school shooting that occurred.
Today?
I believe the shooting happened, I believe now it was 2 days ago
Okay.
that it occurred. And I believe it is a town outside of Detroit. And I believe the young man, he's a teenager, uh, 15 or 16 years old. His parents had purchased a firearm. My understanding is they had purchased it for him to have for Christmas. He apparently took the gun to school, unbeknownst to at least the people at school. Don't know whether or not the parents knew that he had it. And apparently he had made some threats regarding killing people. The school had even called the parents, it's my understanding, that day and asked that they come and take the child, the teenager, away from the school.
Wow.
And the parents refused to do so.
Really?
Yes, they refused to take him away from the school. And then apparently a little bit later, he shot and killed a number of other students there at that school.
Well, let's see. I guess that brings up issues of gun control once again, huh? But even bigger issues.
Well, what I find amazing is that there have been police called on 6-year-old African American children at school for having a tantrum, or 10-year-old African American children. But this child was a white child. He had made threats that he was going to kill people, yet the police weren't called. And then he followed through on his threats. So explain to me why it's appropriate to call the police on a 6-year-old child when you know children that young have tantrums. That's what they do.
Yep.
To call the police and actually have that child put in handcuffs and put in a police car, or 8-year-old or 10-year-old if they're African American. But it wasn't appropriate where you have someone who is making threats that they are going to kill people. You don't suspend them. You don't. Well, we asked his parents to take him, and they said no. He's going to finish out the school day. And again, I want to be clear. We're certainly not making light of what happened, because there were lives that were lost. But what we're pointing out is the difference that happens in our society when an African American child does something minor, something normal for a child, and they are treated in such a harsh way. And then when a white child does something far more serious, they get a different standard of treatment.
Well,
if law enforcement had been called, and not saying they had to arrest him and take him down and book him, but if they had been called and said, hey, we're going to take you home, perhaps this tragedy could have been averted. At least law enforcement could have been called out, and maybe they would have searched him and searched his locker and found that gun before anything happened. So you're going to call the police on a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum. And again, these is not the same school. So I know people will be saying, well, that's a different school. It's not the same school.
Well, same school as what, though? I mean,
it's still a
educational institution for our children.
Yes.
And I think, Carl, you bring this up a lot. And the answer is, why are different people treated differently? because we live in America and people are treated differently, period.
Well, it's not only in America that people are treated differently.
Sure.
So I'm gonna disagree with you there. I
Well,
think in Israel there are people who are treated differently. I think the Israelis,
and Palestinians,
yes,
well, now that I would say is definitely over a border and a right to even inherit or land, be there and live there. I'm saying, and what you're pointing out is police be called on A person and then B person, and they treat A person situation differently than B.
yes.
That's what I mean, because of the makeup of the society. So, I mean, it sounds like we have to talk about it, or it comes up all the time, which tells me that it's a pervasive problem, which it's going to happen all the time, which is why the only thing I think that we can do is try to advise individuals on what to do in situations when things happen to them specifically. This tragedy, you know, they're going to holler and say it's a gun issue. One side, they'll say it's a gun issue. You shouldn't have had a gun. Why are you buying a gun for Christmas and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it might have been legal to do. Why are you doing that? And then on the other side would be, well, what's wrong with this boy that he would have such issues that he would walk into school and be able to do that? You see? And what kind of disciplinary issues did he have before? Would be one thing that I'd wonder, as to why the parents didn't come get him, or or something, what.
Well, like I said, the parents were actually, it is my understanding, the parents were at the school earlier that day. Now, I did get a message from someone earlier today asking me, because it was indicated on the news that they are searching for the parents right now, and that the attorney said, well, the parents aren't on the run, but they've left because they were afraid for their own safety.
Okay.
But it appears that there may be some criminal charges against them. I don't think we know yet. I know, once again, when we talk about disparate treatment, if an African American male has a gun and a child in that home gets that gun and accidentally, discharges that weapon, and injures somebody, or just discharges the weapon, or is found with the weapon, that person is usually charged.
Well, we'll have to see on this one. I mean,
Yes,
I'm
I
pretty
guess
sure
it
they're
depends
gonna.
on what and what I
That's why the parents
explained.
lawyered up. I mean,
What I explained to the person that messaged me is that it is going to depend on what the facts are. Did the family know that he had taken the gun? Did they leave the gun in a condition where he could get access to it without their permission? Although, again, my understanding is that the mother may have posted online that the gun was a present, going to be a Christmas present for him.
I was going to answer that question for you.
Okay.
Of course, they left it in a place where he could get it. If it was in a gun safe, it was locked, he wouldn't have got it.
Well, no, because I could have a gun in my gun safe, and my kid could steal my key, and unbeknownst to me, steal my key, off my key ring and access it. That wouldn't be me giving him access to it.
But you got access to your key ring.
My key ring is in my purse, and I'm going to expect that my children don't go in my purse without permission. My children don't.
No, but I'm just saying.
So that's not giving access, because if that's the standard, then you couldn't have felons anywhere where there's a firearm, and you can if the firearm is stored properly. And the firearm, if you've ever read that entire firearm packet that they give out,
yes,
tells you how the firearm has to be stored, and it does have to be in a way that there is no way that they have access to it. But again, that's usually just a matter of it being locked, and you're supposed to keep the key somewhere where they don't know where the key is, so that they can't access it.
Most safe nowadays, though, are number lock or combination lock.
The new ones. But there are people who still have the old ones.
Yeah, but sometimes they come with the combination plus a key, though, too. So there's a way of securing that from the kid, period.
Well, we don't know what kind of safe they had, or if they had a safe at all.
Here's the thing: go get one. maybe the duty is they should have gotten one, then just let the gun sit around the house and let the kid have access to it.
Or they could have had a one of those locks that you put on there so
I
that
put on the gun,
yeah.
exactly, to where he couldn't have ever fired it. So to me, that's a easy way of preventing this. But the harder questions are, if this didn't, well, let's see, let's suppose this, because you said this is white community, right? That this happens in.
Mhm.
What if it was an all-black community?
What do you? Oh, I didn't say it was a white
No,
community.
no, no. But I mean, but you said it was a white kid. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Now, I'm going to assume that he goes to a school where they're probably not all black, but maybe, even if it's 50%. Now, you're saying that in America, we should be concerned because if a black kid would be treated differently.
Well, go ahead.
No, that's what the point is, right? That the kid's going to be treated differently.
Here's what I'm saying. We're not talking about treated differently for the same conduct. We're talking about treated differently for lesser conduct. Again, I had another message from a viewer that indicated that their daughter provided a personal hygiene product to another child, to another, they're teenagers, to another one in the bathroom. And someone said, oh, I saw her pass her something. Yeah. And she explained what the item was. And the school insisted on searching both children to make sure that it wasn't some other illicit item.
Yeah, and it probably was a napkin or something like that.
Yes, personal hygiene.
Yeah, but shouldn't all teachers do that? If that really is reported, shouldn't the teachers follow up on that? I mean, white, black, or not? Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to have a certain standard, then it should be applied the same across the board.
Exactly.
If you're going to no, you shouldn't be calling the police on 6-year-olds. And if you think you need to call the police on a 6-year-old, then you probably shouldn't be working at a school.
But I'm saying that you're saying that it's not being applied equally. But how? No. Right? The same standard. It's not being applied equally.
No, I'm not saying they would treat someone who was a school shooter who was African American differently. I'm saying with the minor infractions by African Americans are treated harsher than major infractions by others. That is my point.
What are we going to do, though? See, how do we reconcile something like that? Because we kind of feel that, we know that, but how do we reconcile
we
that?
See it.
but how do we reconcile that? What do we do? I mean, should we go with the Keith plan? The master plan that I have?
Let's keep that.
It sounds like that's where we got to go, Carl.
Let's keep that to yourself.
Okay.
Lawman.
But I really think we're getting close to talking about the Keith master plan.
Well,
okay,
let's not do that today.
All right, that'll be another episode. All right, we got to talk about enhancements now. Okay, let's go to criminal law now and talk about some enhancements.
Well, before we hop to that,
all right,
we're still waiting for a decision on what's going to happen with Roe v. Wade, right?
The Mississippi case, you mean?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Well, the Supreme Court's final decision as to what they're going to do.
Well, and I mean, do they? And now here's something legally that people would want to know. If their decision on this Mississippi case, why does it affect everybody? Because wouldn't it just be Mississippi? Say Mississippi drew that statute. So we're talking about a Mississippi law that they're upholding.
But remember, other states are going to follow the same as what we saw them doing with the voting situation. The other states are going to see, did it work? It worked for Mississippi. Oh, we'll pass that same law.
Sure.
We'll pass that same law.
See, now that might not work because it still depends on the voters in the state. See, and that's
they
where
certainly will try. Well, and we know from the voters in the state, voters gave us the last president.
No, I mean, but then again, but if voters were the majority, if that's the majority of what people wanted, that's what they get.
Well, that's what we got.
But here's the thing. Also in Georgia, we saw that 2 Senate races can be won against all odds, so to speak.
They can.
Now, what I'm saying is it is up to each state in terms of voting in these laws that the Supreme Court has to review. So legally, that's all I'm saying is if they uphold this Mississippi decision, would it apply nationally right away? And I don't think it would. I think that what you hear a lot of in these cases even coming there are states' rights. So each state, and what that means is if it's not a federal law, then the states usually have the right to govern that area of law. If it's not in the Constitution or backed by the Constitution or, fed by federal law.
Well,
So,
they could completely overturn Roe v. Wade and say there is no constitutional right to that procedure, and then that is going to apply. It will
but,
be the law of the land.
but once again, I don't think that would be the popular decision for the Supreme Court to make. But I think that they can say, Mississippi, can you do what you want to do? And then another state comes and
But the
challenges.
problem is if they tell Mississippi that it's okay, all the other states that want to try and do that will follow lead.
And that's where the voting comes in, to where you can't allow such a statute to be passed in your state. So the fight is, don't let the statute be passed in your state and it'll never get to the Supreme Court.
Well, the fight also should have been, and of course, I know we can't go back in time. How in the world did this country, this United States of America that we love so much,
Freedom,
let someone like Trump put 3 people on our Supreme Court?
Okay, I'll tell you how. The president has a right in the Constitution to appoint individuals for federal judgeships, including the Supreme Court.
No, I know
So,
that he did.
well,
I know
some
that
people
he
may
can
not
do it.
But see, now wait a minute. The president is the sole person who can do that. So if he wanted to put in his 3 kids, he could have put his 3 kids on the bench. So you vote in that president.
Now, come on, it's not unilateral. So now you're simplifying it. They have to go through the proceedings, and there has to be a vote on it. So
Sure. But when you control the Senate, like they did, they will get approved, right? And that's what they did, because it could have been quashed in the Senate and right.
Why would they quash it in the Senate? The Republicans,
because the person's not good.
They don't care about not good. What they care about is this person going to uphold the policies that we support, not the policies that our Constitution supports.
But the questions that are asked of them is upholding the Constitution.
And as you can see, sometimes they
lie. All right. Are you? But if that's the case, then the whole system has to be dismantled. And the Keefe idea still comes back into place again of what to do about this particular situation. Because, and on the one hand, this is the thing. I always take the position that if our laws are allowing it to happen, if our laws are allowing something to occur, then you take it down by changing the law, fighting the law, or like they did in the 60s, the law that is in place is an unjust law, and we shall protest against that unjust law by not doing what that law says we must do or not do. And that's how we protest that law. So here, if they grant this thing in Mississippi, what do you think? And how should women protest this thing?
Well, one, I think it's just going to result in women are still going to make that choice to have that procedure, but they're going to do it in ways that are not safe for their health. And what amazes me is that people thinking that they can tell someone what to do with their body, with a choice that is going to require them not just the 9 months of carrying a child, but the lifelong, certainly the first 18 years job of being a parent. And no one should be forced into that position that doesn't want to be in it. Someone may not be financially stable or ready to become a parent. Someone may realize, you know what, I'm actually just not parent material. And so I don't want to have children for that reason. And also, one of the problems, my understanding, is that there is no exception for incest
Right.
or rape. So if a
Right.
woman is raped and ends up pregnant, she's now forced, potentially in Mississippi, to carry that child to term
Yeah.
and then to raise the child of her rapist.
Yep.
Now, what these Republicans who want to force women to have children, these are the same ones, though, who, if that woman doesn't have resources to provide for that child, are not willing to do things to assist. They
Right.
don't want to provide early intervention and child care. They don't want to pay for those things, even though it has been shown that those things are necessary for us as a whole, as a society.
I'm going to throw something at you. Birth control. Okay, women, you don't want to have babies. Birth control.
Oh, why is birth control just for women?
Okay, scientists create one for men, and until they do, birth control.
So now I have to be forced, or women would have to be forced to put some chemical in their body that alters their natural system.
Yes.
No.
but we do that anyway.
What do you mean?
Meaning we put things in our system that alter our system.
We do. Well, some people do. Some people do not.
Aspirin and Tylenol.
There's some people don't even take aspirin and Tylenol.
True.
Everything
but maybe they take hormones.
Completely natural.
They take blood pressure medication, diabetes medication.
But they're not forced to do that. That's something that they make a choice to do. You're saying now the government is saying, well, here's.
Oh, wait, I'm not forcing. Don't wait a minute, hold on. That's right, because don't have sex. Don't have sex where people ejaculate.
Okay, so
or
what you're telling people is to not be human.
Be careful.
No,
and and take a responsibility up front before you create that life.
You're telling people not to be human. That's what you're telling people.
Don't create a life. That's all I'm saying.
And unfortunately, that is going to happen because people are human.
Human meaning will make a mistake, will not do something that they would do to protect themselves.
Humans make mistakes. We see it every day.
But we don't, and we do things that don't protect ourselves. If birth control was the answer, right? And all we got to do is take it. What's wrong with taking it? I'm not forcing you to. Just don't have sex if you don't want to have a kid.
Okay, so then you're telling someone not to be human because sex is a natural event that happens between human beings.
But Constitution.
We digress.
All right. We'll get back to the law. See, I was just asking what can happen then? What should women do if this thing passes? How should they protest the law?
Well, there are going to be any number of ways that they're going to protest.
Okay. All right. Now, I did want to mention something about enhancements, and I think what was your subject matter? Didn't you want to talk about something?
Oh no, you were going to talk about a new enhancement law that's coming.
Yes. According to we talked about SB 81, which what it does is, as to every enhancement that can be applied, such as gun, great bodily injury,
any enhancement, out on bail enhancement, gun use enhancement,
except for 3 strikes, probably.
Nope, that is included. I believe that is also included. I believe it is also included.
I'll have to check.
But it's not a blanket removal of enhancements.
Correct.
It is just giving the judge a series of factors that he or she can consider in determining whether or not to apply an enhancement.
Now, when you say that, let's say I have a gun and a gang enhancement, okay? What kind of moves, and let's say my case is pending, right? If my case is pending, then what should I do?
One, you want to wait until after January 1st to get sentenced, if at all possible.
Right.
But again, it's not, I want to be very clear, it's not just a blanket removal. Oh, no, there will be no enhancements. The judge is going to weigh a series of factors. And one of the things he's also going to consider is, are you a danger to the community? So that's kind of a catch-all phrase that if you're a danger to the community, they don't have to necessarily apply that new law to you.
What if my crime was only against one person? Is that a danger to the community?
Well, unfortunately, it's not just whether or not the crime involved one person, it's how they view your actions. And so, certainly, violent crimes are more likely to be considered that you pose a danger to the community.
Now, I got to ask about this enhancement. When you say that a judge has the option, are you saying that individuals who've already been sentenced,
No,
whose cases
no,
are already done,
no.
it does this apply to them?
I don't believe it does. I believe it specifically states that it applies to sentences that occur after January 1st, 2022.
So if you are in prison now because of this, so you've been sentenced and you're in prison now, you don't get
80,
to just come back
yeah,
for a review.
Not on 81.
Okay.
And now, unless there is, because again, anytime a law goes into effect and it's new, we have to wait and see what case law is going to say about how it should be applied. But
And-
just from the reading of the law, it is only applying to sentences that happen after January 1st, 2022.
Now there's a case in Re Estrada.
I think you're going to talk about the people on appeal.
Yes, people on appeal. If your case is not yet over because it is on appeal and the law changes, I believe they will get the benefit of that law. But you have to have your case be on appeal at the time. Now I just got sent to trial and we were talking about this law, and a few things came up. Number one, how everyone right now will not be sentenced here in whatever this year is, 2021. You're going to wait until 2022 to be sentenced. Now, if your case hasn't even been resolved, but of course it'll probably be 2022. But
again, remember, if you're charged with a violent crime, if you're charged with the use of a weapon, I mean, they're going to consider these other factors, but those are also things that they may use to exclude you from having this new law applied to you.
Well, let's just say, just for the sake of it, that because I want people to see how it might work. So let's say I'm going to get sentenced in January. I'm sentenced and I got a couple of enhancements. Let's just give me a gang and give me a gun. Now I'm up for sentencing. Does the judge say, look, I see these two enhancements, this new law is in effect, so I'm going to strike them? Or
no,
the judge weighs a set of factors?
The judge weighs the factors. There is one section of it, I believe, that limits the enhancements to one specific enhancement. So if you're charged with multiple enhancements, I believe the judge can select one of those enhancements to apply, but not all of the enhancements. Whereas in the past, we saw stacking of enhancements. And enhancements are additional allegations that can be used to increase the punishment that a person is facing when they're charged with a crime.
Just to give you a numbers example then, Carm, if I had 2 years for a robbery and 10 years for a gun enhancement, and then I got 10 years for a gang enhancement, that's 22 years I can get. So when the time of sentencing comes for that, the judge can knock off 20 years?
Yes, he could take, but the circumstances that you described, I want to explain again. If it's a crime of violence,
right,
that's going to make it less likely. Not saying that it precludes it, but it's going to make it less likely. But in the scenario that you described, it appears that if the judge is going to give you one of the enhancements, he has to select which one of the enhancements he's going to give you. So that would not actually knock off 20 years where you were facing two 10-year enhancements, but it would bring it down by 10. And that is still a significant amount of time if you're the person who's about to have to serve that type of sentence.
And that's the point I wanted to make was in those situations and stuff, it can be very important. It's easy to get that 20-year enhancement, but in this situation, when they're sentenced now under SB 81, it appears that a judge can't stack the enhancements. I think there was something else in there about once you get to 20 years for a base term or something like that, that the enhancements can be stricken. So if you're going to actually do 20 years of your base term, like then the enhancement can be stricken after that. But that new law will take effect in the new year. One of the second thing that came up when we were talking was, well, then everyone's going to continue their case into the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and why wouldn't you, if in fact you knew you were looking at stacked enhancements, or you have the type of history that would allow a judge to strike an enhancement? Because people will want to know, what should a judge consider in order to strike an enhancement? You mentioned that, if you're a danger to society, right? That a judge wouldn't have any reason to strike that enhancement, or at least they can justify why they won't strike the enhancement because you're a danger to society. But could you elaborate a little bit more on how a judge comes to that conclusion, and what would they weigh? What kind of factors? You've been a good boy, you have no record, you've lived a productive life, you're employed, things like that.
Those are certainly factors to be considered. They would also consider whether or not you have any mental health issues. They would also consider if you used a gun, whether or not that gun was loaded or unloaded, whether or not alcohol was involved.
Vulnerable victim, maybe, or something like that, or if the victim was especially vulnerable, or
I don't think that's one of the listed factors, but that's always something that the court is going to take into consideration in sentencing.
So, and harm and the use of force, I would guess, in the crime, and things like that.
Yes.
So is that what you mean by all those things together? The judge can find that you're a danger to society
and still impose
all of the enhancements, except for the stacking.
Not all of cannot oppose. I don't believe they can impose all of the enhancements, because it actually has a section that says shall dismiss the enhancements. So they have to select of all the enhancements that a person is charged with.
Yes.
They have to select one of those enhancements, and that one has to be imposed.
Yes, and I'm using the term stacking to talk about that.
Meaning
more than
multiple
one
enhancements. Yes.
Okay. All right. There is a new law that I do know coming out, SB 483, and it changes Penal Code Section 1171 and 1171.1. And what it does is it now makes illegal prison priors, 1 year prison priors.
Which one is this? I'm sorry.
SB 483.
Okay, I thought that one already went into effect. Did it? SB 483?
483.
Let me double check that, because I think that already went into effect.
Now, it might have, but the nuance on it, know that it gets rid of prison prior, 1 year prison priors, and 3 year drug enhancement. Now, the thing about it, though, is the court has set these dates whereby, and they're for next year. That's why I don't think it went into effect, because it starts like in January, because the way it's going to work is, if I had a drug case,
that's the one where they're actually repealing the enhancements for
exactly,
people who have already
served their base term.
So it actually applies retroactively,
right, for anything next year. But here's where
retroactively.
In
for
the
people
year.
in the past who are already in prison serving time for these sentences.
Yes, but here's the thing: I'm serving 5 years for dope sales. I had 6 years, 3 and 3, for dope priors. Right, Carm?
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 years in priors, 5 years in base. Way to supply. If I'm still serving my 5 years, that doesn't kick in until I start serving those 6 years. And that's when the court will drag you in and re-sentence. Or at least next year they set a schedule.
Relying on the Secretary of the Department of Corrections to identify the people that are serving
near the
sentences that includes those type of enhancements,
right?
So that they can be so that they can be
resentenced. Yes. And that's the power of that, because it's gonna if you're doing your 5th year and think you got 6 to go, well, now the court will order that you come back and be resentenced so that 6 drops off. So that's going to be pretty powerful for some people.
Yes, and if the CDCR is on top of that, because what shouldn't happen is that people aren't identified and then they end up serving that time, or they're not identified until it's too late and they've already served the sentence.
Yeah, and that would be a 1-year prison. I mean, if you're going to serve 6 months of it or something like that, so that's why they put in they're put in literal dates of when things should happen for certain people. So, and CDCR is actually in that code. They are mandated to do this, and they should spend the money necessary, to bring people back, to identify people, I guess is a better way to say which prisoners in our system are serving now their enhancement part under these 2 statutes, 667.5B, and I believe it's 11.3.800 or 11.3.00 or something like that, or 11 which would be the 3-year prior for dope enhancement. So it's health and safety code 11.3.800 or something like that.
And the plan is not to actually bring people back from prison physically, but to have the hearing remotely, or
but if you're resentenced,
or if you just agree that you waive the resentencing hearing, they can do the resentencing without you even being present. It basically would just be done on paper.
Yeah. But more than likely it'll be a video review. They'll zoom it in like we've been doing.
They're going to encourage people to waive because they don't want to have to do all of those. So if the person waives, it's not even going to be a Zoom hearing.
Yeah.
They're just going to go ahead and
resentence them. Yeah. And that, you would think they just do that anyway, without a person.
Just go ahead
and do it right now. And if you did it now, you would save all of that by just commuting. Oh, you had 6 years, you're into your 3rd year. Now you're out at this time and not that. So that's a little bit about enhancements coming up. SB 81 and SB 483. Enhancements. These are the allegations that attach to a crime, and now how they'll be treated in California.
There is always a caveat, right? Because the court can find, if the court finds by clear and convincing evidence that giving the person a lesser sentence would endanger public safety, they don't have to do it.
Right. But we're talking prison priors and we're talking dope enhancements, which only apply if you got a dope charge. So most of the time they won't be dangerous. But you could have somebody
who has a dope charge, but who has guns.
No, you can have somebody who has guns in a robbery. I'm doing 15 for that, and I got 2 prison priors.
Yeah.
So when I've done my time and I got these 2 to go, you see, you can find, you too damn dangerous. You're gonna serve those 2.
Yeah.
Or, all right, get out of here early. But you would think they'll vote for get out of here early because they do have to still trim down the prison population. So, all right, enhancement and the gun issue in Michigan. So, we'll talk more about what to do about how we are treated in society. More, we always do, but we're getting there in the time to go. So we must bid you adieu at this particular time.
Yes, I would again remind you that we've changed our format. We're no longer doing an hour. We're doing a half hour on Fridays from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. I think we started a couple minutes late, and so we've gone a couple minutes over. We appreciate everyone who was here with us viewing.
Tell your friends when you review it and stuff like that. Tell them to see some of our old stuff, and subject matters. And
if you have family members, friends who have these issues, please have them watch the show. And like I said, post in the chat or call in at 916-443-5288.
All right.
All right.
1 week down, Carm.
Yes. And I would like to say congratulations to one of our friends who has been appointed to a judgeship.
Oh,
More than one.
a couple of them,
But
yeah.
yes. I will say congratulations to Allison Williams.
Yay. I'll say congratulations to Allison too, and to Andre Campbell.
Yes.
Yes. And to Lori Earl.
Yes.
Who made it to the 3rd District Court of Appeals.
Yes.
And I will say congratulations to my mentor, Jesse Morris, who will be honored on December 7th from the Sacramento County Bar Association as Distinguished Lawyer of the Year.
Yes, for all of his hard work defending clients.
I met this man when I was a puppy, when I just started law school, and I've known him ever since, and he's had my back, and I've had his, and I admire his career, and I love what he stands for.
Yes.
So, a lot of good news on that front.
So, all right, be safe. Have a good evening from us here at Courtside.
With Lawman
and Carmen B.